I was on leave when the frequency woke up on its own. Kestrel Point wasn't supposed to still be listening. The station had been slated for decommission for 6 years, its old dish rusting on the cliff above the gray water like a bone the tide never bothered to bury, and the only reason the intercept board still drew power was that nobody had ever signed the order to cut it. I kept the lights on because I liked the quiet, and because somewhere under the boredom of my retirement paperwork, I still half believed the deep arrays might catch something worth catching before the whole rig went dark for good. That night it caught a checksum. Not a hail, not a beacon. A checksum, the small error correction packet that rides under a data burst so a receiver, any receiver, can confirm the burst arrived whole. Except this one had a shape I recognized from 11 years of watching real distress calls limp in through real static. 3 short pulses, 1 long, 3 short again, folded into the correction code itself, quiet enough that a machine built to catalog and forget would do exactly that. I did not forget it. I ran the packet back 4 times before I let myself believe what I was looking at. It wasn't addressed to Kestrel Point. It wasn't addressed to Earth at all. Once I peeled the correction layer away, the header read like an archive submission, encrypted twice, stamped with routing instructions for a dead drop relay, inside something my systems eventually named the Corvain Reach, a client empire network that hadn't broadcast toward this arm of the galaxy in over a century. Whoever built this transmission had built it to be found by their own people. Someday, long after they were gone. It wasn't a call for help. It was a woman leaving evidence. I opened it anyway. Her name, translated best my systems could manage, was Sael Draeth, intelligence officer, attached to an archive vault under Austral Vale, a garrison world under siege, its atmosphere seeded 3 weeks earlier with something her own reports called, flatly, an invisible agent. No smell, no color, no warning short of the men falling where they stood, hours after exposure, hearts simply forgetting their instructions. She wasn't transmitting for rescue. Rescue wasn't a category she believed still existed. She was transmitting a record. Timestamps, symptoms, casualty counts, the vault's air recyclers failing one by one, so that whoever eventually cracked the archive would know precisely how her team had died and precisely who had ordered the agent used. She expected to be read by historians. She did not expect to be read at all. Not really. Not soon enough to matter. I sat with that for longer than I should have. The station manual had a procedure for intercepted traffic that wasn't addressed to us. It was short. It said to log the intercept, flag it as non-actionable, and forward the log to an oversight desk that had gone unstaffed a year before I transferred in. I read the procedure twice, standing at the console with Draeth's report still scrolling on the secondary screen. The recycler failure times, logged to the minute, the ranks of 4 men who had died in the first 18 hours, recorded with a precision that told me she had known each of them personally. Near the end, her prose changed shape, went shorter, more clipped, and I understood without needing a translator that she had stopped writing for the archive at that point and started writing because writing was the only motion still available to her. I have run a listening post for 11 years. I have logged thousands of intercepts that were never meant for us, most of them noise, some of them genuine traffic from genuine allies, none of them ever asking me, personally, to decide anything. This was the first one that did. Kestrel Point had 1 working shuttle left on the pad, an old atmospheric and short-hop craft called the Corrigan that the decommission board hadn't gotten around to scrapping, and 1 pilot who still answered when I called her at 2 in the morning, a woman named Priya Okafor who'd flown supply routes out of this station back when it had a purpose. I did not have authorization to send her anywhere. I did not have a command structure above me that would have granted it if I'd asked. Not on a timeline that mattered. Not for a transmission that wasn't addressed to us, and wasn't, by any formal reading, a distress call at all. I sent her anyway. I told Priya what I knew, which wasn't much. Coordinates buried 3 encryption layers deep in a report meant for the dead, a toxin with no name I could give her, and a vault that might already be empty by the time she got there. She asked me once whether I'd cleared it with anyone. I told her no. She said, "Close enough," and went to the pad. The flight took 19 hours. I stayed on the board the whole time, listening to nothing, because Draeth's transmission had been a burst and forget, not a channel. There was no one to answer, No way to tell her help was coming. No way to tell her anything at all. I filed a status report to nobody. I logged the dispatch under my own name, alone, because there wasn't a category on the form for what I'd actually done, and because if this went wrong, I intended to be the only name attached to it. Somewhere in hour 11, I opened the report again and read the toxin data straight through, trying to build Priya something useful out of a vocabulary that had no words for what she'd be flying into. The compound didn't have a name in Dreyth's files either, just a designation, a batch number, and a note that its effect profile matched nothing in the Reach's own defensive registries, which meant whoever had used it on Austral Vale had either invented it for the occasion or borrowed it from someone who had. I pulled together every scrap of atmospheric chemistry I had on file, ran 3 separate guesses at a filtration profile through the station's aging modeling suite, and burst all 3 to Priya's shuttle as she crossed the outer dark, with a note telling her plainly that I did not know if any of them were right. She wrote back 4 words, "Working with what you've got." Then she went quiet for the rest of the transit, and I let her. Priya found the vault on the second pass, half buried under collapsed rock the siege had brought down to seal it, its recyclers down to 1 working unit, and 4 people left breathing inside a room built for 40. Dreyth was among them, still logging, her hand recorder still running, when the outer hatch cycled, and a woman in an unfamiliar uniform stepped through, wearing a mask Dreyth's systems couldn't identify, and carrying scrubber cartridges built for lungs that weren't hers, adapted in 19 hours by a supply pilot working off a stranger's guess. Dreyth told me, later, through a translator built for commerce, and not for this, that she'd stood there for 11 full seconds, simply failing to process it. Not gratitude, not fear, just the flat arithmetic refusing to close. She had built that transmission for no one. She had encrypted it against every living reader she could imagine, and a living reader had come anyway, from a species she'd never addressed, following a signal that had never been meant to summon anything at all. She asked, in the first minute, whether the mask meant Priya's people had encountered the agent before, whether there was some prior record of it, some shared enemy, that explained how a filtration profile had arrived so precisely tuned. Priya told her no, that the cartridges were a guess, assembled from a stranger's chemistry notes transmitted across 19 hours of empty dark, and that they'd have as easily been wrong. Dreyth went quiet after that for the rest of the extraction, helping carry the 2 men who could no longer walk, and said nothing further until the vault door sealed behind them, and the last recycler finally failed on schedule. Empty now, no one left inside for it to fail on. She asked Priya, once they were airborne, who had sent her. Priya told her the truth, because there wasn't a better answer available. A man on a station slated for shutdown, alone, off the clock, with no orders and no standing to give any, had heard something not meant for him, and had decided that didn't matter. I never told my own command what I'd done, not properly, not until the report was already 3 days old, and the 4 survivors were already logged as recovered, rather than as an incident requiring explanation. Kestrel Point stayed off the decommission list a while longer after that, though nobody above me ever said why, and I have always suspected somebody read the intercept log and decided it was simpler to let the old dish keep listening than to explain, in writing, what it had just been allowed to do. Dreyth sent one message back through the same channel, weeks later, once her own people had rebuilt enough of the relay to permit it. It wasn't addressed to the Corvain Reach archive this time. It was addressed to Kestrel Point, by name, in a language her systems had clearly built from scratch just to reach me. It said only that she had built her last transmission to be read by the dead, and that she had not accounted for a stranger reading it while she was still alive to be embarrassed about it. I kept the reply. I never answered it. Some frequencies, I have learned, are better left as the last word.